Hey guys, just wanted to make a quick video reminder about how to do sum and difference of cubes and also factoring by grouping. I want to make sure that you're prepared for the test on Thursday, so this is just one more way you can look over these. So this is section 6.4, and the first one I'm going to review for you is the sum and difference of cubes. Remember, a sum is adding two things, a difference is subtracting two things. As long as those two things are what we call perfect cubes, then you can use this rule right here. So you'll notice some things. The first parenthesis small, second parenthesis big. It has a trinomial. You'll also notice that the first parenthesis is always just a plus b or a minus b, and that the sum of cubes has a minus sign here, which is kind of weird. A plus sign here, a minus sign here, and the difference of cubes has a minus sign here and a plus sign there. Okay? Alright, let's try to apply this. So the first example is x cubed plus 64. We remember that x cubed is a perfect cube and 64 is a perfect cube. So we're going to rewrite it as x parentheses x cubed plus parentheses 4 cubed. So if you remember to do this first step and don't avoid this one, then the next step is so easy. So we're going to apply the rule. This is obviously a sum of cubes, so we're going to use this rule. The rule says you take this, notice I'm trying to put them right above each other. My a is obviously an x, and my b is obviously a 4. So in the next step, I'm going to fill in this parenthesis and this parenthesis with the x and the 4. So I write x plus 4, then it says a cubed, so I write x squared. I'm sorry, a squared, so I write x squared. Then I write minus a times b. My a is an x, and my b is a 4, so I'm just putting them right underneath where they belong. And since b is a 4, I write plus 4 squared. Now simplifying this so it looks more normal, we're going to get x plus 4 times parenthesis x squared minus 4x, and then we square the 4 and get 16, and that's your final answer. You're going to think, though, that you should factor this further, and you can't, because there's nothing that goes into 16, factors of 16 that add to give you negative 4. And you'll just know. If you do cubes, you'll know that. Okay, let's try another example. This time let's do a difference of cubes. This one looks a little different because it has an 8 and a y, but we can rewrite this as something cubed, and we can rewrite this as something cubed. Now, most of the time you're probably going to have to use your calculator and take the cube root of that number to see what the number is. In this case, we can rewrite these as cubes by saying 2y cubed and 5 cubed. Now, it's important to use the parentheses because that's the correct equality, but it also is important because then it's easy to fill in our form. Okay? So we're going to apply the rule. This time it's a difference of cubes. So I'm going to go ahead and write the formula. You'll notice that this and this are on top of each other. That means this is A, and that my B is 5. So when I go to fill it in here, I'm going to put the 2y there and the 5 there. The 2y there, 2y, 5, 5. Okay, so it looks like this. And in this step, I literally substitute in. I substitute in a 2y, substitute in a 5. Substitute 2y, substitute 2y, substitute 5, substitute 5. Okay, when we go to simplify, you'll recognize that it's very important that we use parentheses, because this term becomes a 4y squared, not just a 2y squared. So my final answer looks like this. And again, when you have cubes, when you're doing sum and difference of cubes, you always have a small parenthesis and then you always have a big one. Put a box around with it done. Okay, the next type is called factoring by grouping. You use this when the number of terms is even, greater than 2. So we're not going to do it with 2 terms, because 2 terms is just a GCF, or a difference of squares. But when we have 4 terms, or a difference of cubes too. But when we have 4 terms, or 6 terms, or 8 terms, we're going to use factoring by grouping. Okay? We use this in the bridge method, so it should look familiar to you. Let me walk you through it kind of quickly. Example 3, b cubed minus 3b squared plus 4b minus 12. we do notice there are even number of terms. So we're going to group the first two and the second two right here. All right, next thing we're going to do is take a GCF out of these two. What's in common between those two is a b squared. I'm left over with b minus 3. What's in common in these two is a 4, and I'm left with b minus 3. Again, these have to match. Now in this next term, you'll hear me say everything on the outside times everything on the inside. But you also could think of it like this. In these two, what's in common? The b minus 3 is in common, so we could factor that out. Well, what's left over? The b squared and the 4. Okay? Alright, so this is the final answer because neither of these can be factored further, and so we put a box around it. Let's do one more quick example. The first thing I want you to notice is, and this is the first step in factoring 101, okay? It should be hanging in the classroom, factoring 101. We have to take out GCF when it's there. And since each of these terms has a 2, we're going to take it out. Now it's just going to keep coming with us in the problem. But look how much easier it'll be to do these. Then we have to group. Okay, we have to group the first two and the second two. Notice I didn't change anything about them. I just put them in parentheses. Now we're going to pull out a GCF in these two. The GCF in these two is x squared. So I'm left with x minus 8. The GCF in this one is a negative 4. So I'm left with x minus 8. Remember, in this case, you write down everything on the outside times everything on the inside. Now I want you to notice something unique about this one. In the previous problem, we were finished at this point. But we should recognize that this is factorable. This can be factored as x minus 2, x plus 2, because it's a difference of squares. So be careful to, when you think you're finished, make sure you can't factor the quadratic the way that we learned in last chapter. Put a box around it. All done. Okay, that's it. Good luck. Talk to you soon.